Hey guys, welcome back to the park. Welcome to episode 13, week 13, maybe? I don't know. They get off schedule. But okay, so we're in the finished park right now, or at least the part of the week that I finished. I'm not good at hitting the record button when I start working on stuff. So we're just going to do this a little different. I'm going to show you what I ended up doing this week, or 2 weeks actually, because we're increasing it to 2 weeks. But I wanted to show you what I was working on pretty much this week. Now, there is a part of this park that no longer exists, and you'll see it in the next video, in the true Brocoaster video. But John didn't like it, and after thinking about it and after looking at it, I didn't really like it either. It was kind of a cheapy flooded caverns type dark ride portion, but the problem is I'll tell you later, because that's a whole thing. But let's get started with what I probably worked on first, which was trying to create a bridge, a reasonable bridge for this area right here, because Ryan, beautiful, he made this beautiful log flume and everything, which is great, but he left the train track just kind of floating there, and that wasn't going to be acceptable. So I started working on what ended up being this bridge. This bridge, it didn't work because, here, I'll show you, because of my favorite thing in the world, collision detection. So if I open this bridge up and move one of these pieces or these planks into the water, yep, cannot do it. So I ended up having to create a bridge. I started with the stone bridge, and then when I got to a certain point and realized I couldn't actually finish it, that made me a little pissed. So then I realized, all right, so I have to take the pillars, or basically the support, all the way back to the point where it's not going to collide. And I ended up with a kind of truss system bridge. It got a little themier than our past editions have been, but if we're thinking about budget like Ryan was, and this is what the park did with the first million, then yeah, and there was some nice theme to go along with it to keep this bridge, because if this is a train park, then the scenic route is important, and all the things underneath to support the train and everything are important. You're not going to see a whole lot of just simple plank bridges with this route, because this train route is probably the oldest thing in the park. Some parts might be rebuilt a little more cheaply, but the whole feel of it should be kind of like consistent across the board. It came at a necessity because I couldn't put anything any closer, because freaking collision detection, which we all love, and it's awesome because it's a. I'm just gonna rant for a second. It's a game that promotes complete, creativity. Put anything anywhere. Use the pieces however you want. But no, there's collision detection. No. So, see, you can't actually put the scenery through your rides. You can put the scenery through your paths. You can put it through people. You can put it through plants. But you can't put it through rides. And I just gotta say, that makes no goddamn sense. And it's infuriating. But in this case, it actually created a design challenge, and it turned out nice. The end of it just kind of ends in a very simple way. I ended up taking. I worked with a lot of vines, because this is an area that would be a lot wetter, so vines would be growing here more. You can see that it's a lot more shaded in the afternoon. So we use vines to create that sort of overgrown look. Not really taken care of. They're really not hard to manage. They are harder to pull off and get rid of when they become overgrown. But just to have them grow is actually really simple. Ivy is like one of the easiest things to grow. So I kind of decorated our bridges and stuff with a little bit of ivy. Not too much, just enough that it's like, all right, Or we'll keep it there. But if it grows too far into the ride, then we'll get rid of it, or at least the park would. And then I also added a little bit of like yellow violas in a few different shades to create kind of a flowering vine on this side. It just gives you a little bit of a pop of yellow. Very simple thing to do. Also, down here, I use green to create a new bush. If, you know, from a distance, it doesn't look so flowery. It just kind of looks like lumps of plant, which is exactly what I wanted. I ended up doing a lot with landscaping in this week. If you come over here, I kind of cleaned up this area and gave it, a pretty standard, simple landscape here. Just some greenery and a little bit of color. That's pretty much my MO with this park, is a lot of green and just a little bit of color when it comes to the landscape. And I think it creates a more realistic sense of design, because this park, as nice as it is in places, is not meant to have a huge budget for landscaping. This area, this little like vignette, kind of seems odd when if you zoom back and there's like nothing there. But what I think we plan to do is we want to have a restaurant terrace here, like a chicken restaurant with a terrace that overlooks the logs as they're coming around the bend. So I wanted to make sure that there was something nice to look at. And it's not too many things. It's a lot of vine. It's an established tree. And then this, they call these lupins, but if you've ever actually seen a lupin, they're ginormous kind of shrubby things. So I tried to do that here, where you actually kind of have a mix of greens going on, a mix of textures, and then the flowers just kind of pop up in the bush itself. That's more of what a lupin looks like. This is, I don't know what they're thinking, but for the most part, landscape options have been okay. I wish there were more, but that's another discussion. What I ended up doing to the flume, I thought it needed just a little bit of like a pick me up. Also, the big problem and why I had to change the flume was way too tall. What ended up happening, here I'll show you. I've actually kind of got it worked down a little bit. But since the flume was so tall and the drop was so steep, well, not really steep, but it was picking up a lot of energy. Once it hit the splashdown, it was like soaking the train track, and it didn't seem right. So I ended up taking the flume down by 10 or 15 feet, which ends up making it kind of peak less over. It kind of nestles in a little bit more. It's a smaller drop, so it doesn't carry the water so far. It still gets the bridge, but it's not as bad. So that was kind of the whole reason why I started messing with the flume. And once I get to start to messing with something, that's it's not a good thing. But in this case, I kind of like what I did here. This was before I added this like dark ride area that you can't see anymore, but it dropped even further than this third drop, or the second drop. I mean, it dropped like way into the earth, which was not very good. But I wanted to create a little bit of water play, and so I designed this little cascade. As you come by, you get splashed a little bit before you turn around and head to drop 2, which takes you down this covered drop into a nice big splash pool. It's a more wet splashdown. It's not very large, but it just has more water going back into the channel, so it creates that like big swooshy splash, which would be a nice little element on drop 2. It's not too much of a drop, but it'll get you wet and you'll be like, ah. I added some triggers underneath to kind of make that effect work. If I actually write it, let me go to, here we go. And then I think it's more like, once you get into seat 4 or something like that, you can really see it. This used to say warning flooded caverns, but it doesn't anymore. But you can like really see the water flowing. And that's just triggers hidden underground at kind of different angles to give you the idea that there's water splashing all around. Little tricks here and there. This will eventually just be a kind of a collecting pond. All the water flows pretty much down from the top of the drop, goes all the way down till it reaches this lowest collecting point, and then we'll have pipes carry it back up to lift, or carry it back up the lift to the straight part here. I felt that the ride, even though it was built in the 70s and it wasn't really meant to be much, I just thought it needed something else. The meandering just wasn't doing it for me. You'll see in episode 14 that the first iteration went way too far, and it was the size. I mean, you can still kind of see the building footprint that was there. Yeah, it was too big. The reason why I would have normally done it this way, which would have been fine. I think this height of a drop is okay for this kind of ride. I wanted it to be kind of like a mini dark ride section, so I was like, all right. I thought if I just covered the track with terrain, it would work. But I figured out how Planet Coaster's lighting system works, which is kind of cool and kind of frustrating because it didn't really work for me. It doesn't matter how much, if you have the entire like track encased, if the layer of terrain is thin, it won't activate lighting because the game thinks that the depth of the terrain has something to do with the darkness. And so if you actually, here I'll show you, if you make a giant mountain, like that, the game actually thinks that when you create a cave here, that this amount of terrain is obscuring the light. And so the deeper you go, the darker it gets. But it has nothing to do with whether or not your area is enclosed. Because you can go very, very deep and have the light poke in, and it won't make a difference. It won't light it up. It'll only light up where the direct sunlight rays are, but you won't get any like bounce light. It'll just be incredibly contrasted. And the reason why is because the game isn't actually calculating any of this. It's just calculating a very simple amount of depth. So it thinks that because there's that much mass on top, that this area, this cave gets dark. But if I take this down, you'll see what I mean. See how the ground gets lighter? What was once dark is now like almost illuminated from the inside. So that's why I ended up having to dig really deep to get the lights to turn on. And there was still quite a bit of this like glowiness from the terrain. I just thought you guys might find that interesting in case you thought, like I did, you could just encase a building in terrain, like a thin layer of terrain, and it would work. It doesn't work. There's always a push and pull with a game like this. It wouldn't be able to handle real-time rendering of light. So it fakes it in a way that is very smart, but doesn't do what you want it to do sometimes. Beyond this, I think this was my first week, messing with these bridges, making sure the landscape was all put back together, adding this cascade, this drop into a dark ride that you can't see anymore. That was the first week. And then the second week, I decided to... I really wanted to get started on that restaurant, but that never happened. I figured we had to fix this, because this was getting a little out of hand, having the rest of the park be so pretty and cleaned up, and then this thing was just an eyesore. I think it was a queue that just kind of zigzagged around. So I took inspiration from one of my source parks, which is Knott's. They have a wave swinger there, and this is kind of like the setup they've got for their queue. I don't know why I picked purple. I guess I just liked it. I don't really have a reason. I think it looked good on here. I thought it looked kind of sharp, and I don't know. Don't judge me. I like purple. But in the queue, I wanted to create something very generic. Of course, I'm like the king of generic with this. But there's still quite a bit of detail here. And how I ended up doing the roofs is just separate buildings. Simple buildings, a roof, and 2 support pieces. And then one of the buildings, I think, has all the rest of the details attached to it. This back fence and all the posts and everything. The queue is fairly simple. It's covered in concrete to make it look like it was all poured at once. But it just kind of arcs back, comes around, switches off, makes a U-turn, makes another U-turn. And then it's in this this boxwood has been growing for a while, so I kind of liked having a hedge in there, even though it's kind of it's in an informal area, but it creates kind of a formal element, which I always like. And I thought it worked. I thought it worked well enough. I would have liked something a little shaggier, but I don't have a choice. And then, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the exit and entrance kind of made sense, that they were around the operator. I also stole some things from Ryan, a little cord protector, a little box, like a fire extinguisher or something like that. Just a lot of details to clean up the edges, these curbs and stuff. If you actually look, if I actually pull up all the scenery, which I will right now, you can see how much needed to be done just to kind of clean the edges up a little bit. Because again, collision detection of these ride envelopes is a little crazy at times. I also added this cool lighting. I don't really know if it'd be in a park like this, but I thought it was cool, and so I went with it. All the posts have little lights turned in. Might be over theming, but sometimes you gotta splurge a little bit. You can't always be, no, the park would not do this, because I think the little splurges create character. The restraint also creates a bit of character, but definitely the little details that we allow ourselves, I think, like these signs. Those Mama Nims, and he did an awesome job. Connie's Handmade Soaps. Oh, yeah, I made this too. I always wanted a little fountain here, a little water feature. I decided to create something that I've seen kind of at like farmers markets and stuff. And I don't know, I think it turned out okay. It's kind of in the style. I don't really know what it is. It kind of looks like a tractor tire. We're going to go with that. It's just a painted tractor tire. But back to the magnificent flying carousel. Again, for the landscape, very simple, easy to maintain. These old cypress trees that don't really require a whole lot. These were meant to be just kind of like, just there. You don't really have to manicure them at all. They're just kind of naturally there. In here, I've got a little Easter egg for Mass Bandit, because I'll just leave that there. Let's see if he figures it out. But yeah, back to landscape. Very simple. And then what I wanted to do was carry the colors of the purple that's kind of been pulled throughout in very simple ways. Just wanted to keep it on the sign. So the sign is purple. And then it carries into the little flower bed here. A little border of color. Just a little bit of color. Makes all the difference. Green is cheap. Color is expensive. If you can remember that, when you're doing your own landscaping, green is cheap, color is expensive. So wherever that peeps are going to be, the people, wherever you want places to look really good, you add color. Wherever you just want things to be okay, as they are, you choose green. Um, that's probably the easiest way that I can improve anybody's landscaping, like 100%. You put flowers where you want people to see them because they're kind of a nuisance. They're pretty, but they're kind of a nuisance. They require a lot of maintenance. Whereas bushes do not. You put them in the ground, they grow, you water them, or you let the rain water them, and that's pretty much it. You trim them every once in a while, and that's good to go. Ivy is kind of the same way. You just let it crawl on what you want it to crawl on. You cut it back when you don't want it to crawl on things. Trees are even easier. You plant them, you leave them, and you just let them do their thing. Make sure they don't like run out of water. Make sure they're not planted too close to concrete, or else this happens. Which I have created a nice little Easter egg for Mast again. The roots of this tree have uprooted this little lantern of his, which is kind of a visual metaphor for what I do to his work. He puts it down, and then I just kind of uproot it. He probably wouldn't find that so funny. But yeah, that's the easiest way that I can explain landscaping. Green is cheap, color is expensive. Yeah, that's that's pretty much it. If you can remember that, you will have really good landscaping. That, I think, pretty much ends what I did this week. I wanted to get more done, but time did not allow. Um, but I ended up having to do a lot of cleanup work, which I'm okay with. Somebody has to do it, and I'm glad that I have other people to kind of help with things of theme, things that take a lot longer to kind of produce. I am content to make a rope fence just because it needs it. I'm content to curb. I think I curbed this area too. Yeah, I curbed this whole area. I re-landscaped. I added this truss bridge. Just a simple bridge, just a simple structure to get the path underneath. Yeah, I'm content to do that. Sometimes it doesn't make for the most interesting videos, but I also did this. Um, we were looking at possible coasters for the park. I know Mass is gonna kill me, but I had to try it out. I wanted to see if we could build a Gerstlauer 320, kind of like a prefab model, because you see it in a lot of smaller American parks, and I think it's a nice, attractive ride. I think it has great capacity and is on an awesome footprint, and so I just wanted to see if it could be done. I ended up having to lift the hill, or the lift the lift, so that I could dig a little deeper to get the correct loop and everything. But it paces well. I mean, you can see. Which I think the Gerstlauer models don't quite have the same friction problems that other coaster types have. It's really evident on the woodens. I'm not entirely sure why. Helix may be a little tight, but the design is pretty tight. Yeah. So this might end up in the park at some time. It's back here because it was just kind of a test. But you can see the other coasters we have planned, and also track rides. We kind of planned them all out here in this little graveyard. I know that Mass is producing an invert on his week. And I think I'm going to tackle the second Woody. I think we're going to go with a Custom Coasters International style. It's going to be rougher than... It's going to be even rougher, I should say, than what we have back here, which is a Voyage style wooden coaster. Besides that, though, we just kind of picked out coasters that might work for the park. And it's a lot, but I don't know if you've noticed, there are not that many rides. So we kind of have to fill in the park with track rides. There probably would have been more flats in this park for the design, but it ain't gonna happen. It just, unless we get a lot of flat rides in the April update, which I don't foresee being a thing, I see us getting a few things, but I don't see us getting a whole bevy of flat rides. Yeah, we're gonna have to stick with track rides and that sort of thing, because it's really the only thing that the game gave us. I mean, we're not going to put in. I mean, some of these are just ridiculous. Like, where the hell am I gonna put this? That's just give me a regularly sized, and I don't want this one either. I don't want one. It's cool. I've ridden one like this, and they're very awesome, but they only work for a specific kind of park, and it's not this one. Let's see, this cool. So you have to have a theme for, I don't know, Bigfoot or something. I'm not Bigfoot, but King Kong. This one is just impossible to theme around because the ride platform is so ginormous. I don't even know what the hell theme this is supposed to be. It's like there are parts of this game that I really enjoy, and there are parts of this game that I absolutely abhor. And the way that they've handled rides is one of them. The flat rides are just ridiculous. This one's not so bad, but it's ginormous. I don't think they're this big. Maybe they are. I don't know. Maybe our scale's off. But okay, so bumper cars, great. We have bumper cars, but look at the goddamn ride envelope. It's just, it's. I'm getting worked up here. And then this is my favorite because, like, you need to devote. Look how much space you have to devote to this damn ride. It's. It's like a whole quarter of the log flume. It's a good third of the freaking arrow, and it's the entirety of the Gerstlauer. So I know, end on a positive note, but sometimes I just wonder what they thought. Like, oh yeah, people will never ever want to have something small or well scaled. No, they want something freaking enormous so that you can't have it anywhere. You can't have anything anywhere else. All right, I got mad again. I'm gonna have to end this. All right. So I like what I did this week. I hope Mass does. I'm pretty sure he will, because he likes these little details and stuff like that. I know for a fact he hated the dark ride, and he tells me in episode 14, which is great because it's gone now. We don't have to talk about it anymore. So I will see you guys next week with Mass, and he's in for a treat. Let's see if he likes it. See you next week, guys. Bye.